Hey, I'm Tom from Trolls and Rerolls, and I'm also the designer behind Amulet of Thrayax. Today I'm going to teach you how to play the game. The prototype you're going to see in the video is a homemade prototype, and as such the quality of the components will be higher in the finished version, and the appearance of some of the iconography and tokens might change. In Amulet of Thrayax, players play as different wacky cults, harvesting the souls of decadent nobles and selfish peasants in the dystopian city of Bleakpire. This is all part of a competition called Thraymania, where the cult with the most souls on their sacrificial altar wins the evil Amulet of Thrayax. First, we need to set up the game board, the city of Bleakpire. Players place the dead center tile in the center of their table. Then, the 6 districts of the city are slotted into the dead center. How the districts are arranged is ultimately down to you, but for the first time playing, I recommend setting them up in this order. Districts are also double-sided, with special thematic rules on the reverse, for when players are comfortable with the standard rules and want to try something new. Nobles and peasants are then placed on each district. The number required for each district is listed in the rulebook, but will also appear in the corner of the districts in the final version. Tokens should be placed on the left-hand side of the district. On the dead center, place the amulet status and amulet direction tokens on their matching spots. Then place the round counter onto the 1. Where the final round counter should go depends on how many players are playing. For this 2-player game, we'll be going up to 7 rounds, so it should go on the 8. Finally, the amulet is spun several times face down and placed in the middle so it lines up with the districts. Players should grab a player board each and place their cult's Inconveniences, followers, and indebted nobles onto the vacant slots. The altar at the top is where players score their points. Players should then shuffle their cult's gold deck, called the murder deck, and their silver deck, called the counter deck, and place them nearby. Players each draw 3 murder cards and 3 counter cards, which makes up their hand. Every player has a different eccentric cult and is represented in the city by player pieces called cult markers. In this video, we're playing a 2-player game, so we have 2 cults. The red cult are the Seers, street corner lunatics who claim to see visions of giant gods in the sky who look a lot like us, laughing and toying with their fate. They believe they're in some sort of divine board game, which is of course nonsense. The blue cult is the Cat King, a mound of psychic cats in a coat. They use their mind control abilities to turn citizens into mindless drones. However, in Bleakpire, that could be anyone. In the standard rules, all the cults are mechanically the same and have the same cards available, but one of our early stretch goals will be to add in optional cult-specific rules and content. The different number of players determine how many rounds the game will go to, how many peasants and nobles start in each district, and whether players use 1 or 2 cult markers. For now, I'll teach the rules with 1 cult marker, but for a 2-player game, players use 2 markers each. The horrible citizens of Bleakpire are represented by 2 types of tokens, nobles and peasants. Peasants are generally easier to get onto your altar, and are used as a resource for movement and auctioning to be first player. However, they are low scoring and only worth 1 point each. Peasant bunches represent 3 peasants, and are just used for convenience. Nobles, on the other hand, are usually harder to get, and whilst they can't be used for anything other than scoring, they're worth a mighty 10 points each. On their turn, a player can move, must play or burn a murder card from their hand, and must play or burn a counter card from their hand. This can be done in any order, but let's start with how to move. The Seers player wants to move their cult marker to the other side of the board, as the marker is the perfect location for their latest scheme. During the same turn, you can only move in one direction, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. To move, the player is going to need to spend some of their hard-earned peasants. Moving to an adjacent district costs 1 peasant. Player takes that peasant from their altar and it goes in the graveyard of the district they're leaving. They can now move. The cost increases by 1 peasant every time you move in the same turn, so to move to the next district, the player must now spend 2 peasants. Moving to the final district costs 3 peasants, meaning they've now spent a total of 6 peasants this turn to get across the board. At any time during their movement, the player could have played their murder card or counter card. Let's start with a murder card. The Seers player decides to play the Eviscerate a Marquee card from their hand. Each card has the same template. The icon on the right will either be a gold knife, to represent a murder card, or a silver hooded figure to represent a counter card. The target wheel on the left tells the player which district the card will be affecting. The down arrow represents where the player is right now. In this case, the down arrow is the market, and is lit up blue and detached, which means the effects of the card happen there. Other cards might have multiple locations lit up. When there's more than one section detached and blue, the player chooses one of those locations and the effects of the card happen in that district only. In this case, the player could target the district next door, the slums, but couldn't target the district they're currently in. Then the outcomes happen. Any outcomes on paper have to happen if they can, and they go top to bottom. The first outcome on this card shows a knife. This is a symbol for harvesting and means you'll be taking something off the board and onto your altar. It's a noble, and the seal tells us how many we're taking, in this case, 1. Then there's a green padlock. Each district is divided into an unprotected side on the left and a protected side on the right. As players play the game, their actions will cause peasants and nobles to not only move to other districts, but also move peasants and nobles back and forth from the unprotected and protected sides. So the top outcome means we harvest 1 unprotected noble, and that goes on our altar. The second outcome says 4 unprotected nobles now scatter, which means they will move into neighbouring districts. They will try to split evenly, with an even number going to left and right, but if there's ever an odd token remaining, the player decides which way that token goes. Given there's only 1 unprotected noble left, so an odd number, the player can choose which way they go, and they decide to place them in the slums to the left. Because the token was unprotected, the token will go to the new district's unprotected side. This also applies when moving protected tokens in and out of a district. The final outcome is optional, but can only be used when the evil Amulet of Thrayax is face up and pointing towards the district you're currently in. It's often a buff, or provides a strategic advantage. In this case, the player can choose to move that noble back into the market. They're the only cult there, so it could be worth the risk. Finally, there's small skulls under each card's picture. The number of skulls tells you how many copies of this card are in your deck. In this case, there are 2 of these cards available. Each player has 2 discard piles for their 2 decks, and when a card has been played or burnt, it's placed in its respective discard pile. Once a player has played or burned both a murder card and a counter card and have finished their movement, their turn is over. Their Inconveniences and Infiltrators will then activate, which I'll get onto shortly. The player will then need to get back up to 6 cards in their hand. They can either choose to draw 1 new card each from their respective decks, or, if they feel their hand is no longer relevant for the current situation, choose to discard their remaining cards and draw an entirely new hand. The player to the left now takes their turn. Another way of harvesting peasants is to deploy Inconveniences, which are the 6 rectangular tokens on a player's player board. These devious ploys, such as releasing plague rats or hiring assassins, can be placed anywhere in the city by choosing to burn a card instead of playing it. They are placed on the outside of a district and activate at the end of their owner's turn. Whatever outcomes are on the inconvenience happen if they can, and like cards happen from top to bottom. The charismatic Crier on the Take will force 4 peasants to move into a district. Moving in works the same as scattering, but instead of moving out, the peasants are moving in evenly from adjacent districts. There's no padlock, so the player can choose to take from either unprotected or protected. There are some inconveniences which will harvest peasants. Unlike cards where anything harvested automatically comes to that player, inconveniences harvest communal points that must be collected. The Ominous Messenger will harvest 2 unprotected peasants and then move 3 more into the protected side. The Seers player is currently in the market when it activates, and so they claim the 2 peasants. However, if another cult has been sneaky and is also present, those points get split evenly. And even worse, if the Cat King kicks out the Seers, the Cat King would get the full points themselves. If no cult is present, or if the amount generated can't be split evenly, those peasants are lost to the graveyard, meaning sometimes it's a good idea to camp in another player's peasant engine. At the bottom of your player board are some additional tokens you can deploy during the game. The diamond-shaped tokens are followers, and can be deployed or removed using certain counter cards. When in play, they sit on another cult's marker and hinder their actions. The Infiltrator will divert harvested souls back to their owner by stealing 2 peasants from the affected player's altar and then putting them on the owner's altar. This will keep happening at the end of the owner's turn until the Infiltrator is removed, so if used early, this can provide a nice steady stream of peasants. The Jester, meanwhile, is busy making a racket, and as such draws attention to the affected cult. Whilst the player has a Jester on their marker, they cannot use the gem outcomes on their cards, even if they're in the Amulet district. Finally, we have the Indebted Noble. This is a noble that assigned their soul away to a cult on the promise that the cult will keep them alive to the end of the game. The Indebted Noble replaces a normal noble and essentially follows the same rules. However, if it is still on the game board by the end of the final round, it is moved onto their owner's altar and is worth a whopping 20 points. Now they do have some protection, in that if an Indebted Noble is ever in the same unprotected or protected side as other nobles, any card that would harvest a noble has to target the normal nobles first. This means it's very much a game of cat and mouse to stop that player from scoring big. Once all players have taken their turn, this marks the end of the round and the start of a new round. The round counter moves up one. If it can't because the final round counter blocks the next number, that means it's the end of the game and players should count their points. However, for now, we've got more rounds to play. The amulet starts the game face down and is flipped at the start of round 2. It doesn't move this round. If it's the start of round 3 or higher, then the amulet will be face up and will move clockwise to the next district along, unless devious players have played certain counter cards that have flipped either the amulet direction token, which means the amulet will now move counterclockwise each round, or the amulet status token, which will lock the amulet in place. Wherever the amulet ends up is considered the amulet district for this round. Any peasants in the graveyard miraculously come back to life and go into the unprotected area, and any inconveniences in the district are temporarily flipped over, revealing their more powerful side. Players then auction for the first player token, using their harvested peasants as currency. Going clockwise from the current first player, players bid how many peasants they'd be willing to spend to become first player. They must always bid higher than the current bid or they can pass, with the highest bidder winning the auction. The winner's peasants go into the graveyard opposite the current amulet district, and they now take the first player token and start the round. I mentioned earlier that at a 2 or 3 player count, players will use 2 cult markers instead of 1. They essentially follow the same rules as using one. However, you can only move 1 marker each round, and any gestures on either marker affect both. They can both claim harvested peasants from Inconveniences, but there's no benefit from having both markers in the same district. At the start of a new round, if the round counter can't move up because of the final round counter, the game immediately finishes. Each player tallies up their points, and whoever has the highest score wins. Their prize, the Amulet of Thrayax. And that is how to play the game. If you'd like to see the game in action, we do have a playthrough video on our YouTube channel and also on our Kickstarter page. And if you have any questions about the rules at all, please do leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. For now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in Bleakpire.